Hello, everybody. Welcome back. There's some rumblings of thunder. Hopefully we stay on. But today is June 11th, and I forgot what sections immediately. Business and social.
There's also some rumblings in the jobs market. And
not good ones.
Not good at all.
Microsoft cuts hundreds of jobs after firing 6,000 in May. It's another round. It's because the beginning of June. It's like, oh, is that a fiscal year thing? No, they're gone.
It's because of AI. And
Walmart is going to lay off 106 tech workers in Silicon Valley because they found some efficiency gains.
This one, I think, is maybe more...
These are like executive level.
Yeah, administrative stuff. But that's... they say that the CEOs eventually will not be immune to AI replacement. So maybe this is the start. And I didn't add a story. We did have the non-farm payroll was less than expected, but not cataclysmic. But this one.
Private sector hiring rose by just 37,000 in May, the lowest in more than 2 years, ADP says. It actually didn't really, but the gains were all in large companies. Small businesses shed a lot.
And I think we've seen plenty of evidence of that from all these headlines. And it is graduation season. So a lot of you are out there, you're striking out into the world. You're going to get your first job. Just kidding, you're not.
For some recent graduates, the AI job apocalypse may already be here. This is echoes of similar stories we've covered probably like 3 times over the last 7 weeks.
Some of us lived this story when they graduated. First time.
People fresh out of school having trouble finding a job.
Computer science, and they break it down, I think, more than just computer science, but some of the computer science disciplines are creeping up to anthropology and psychology levels of unemployment, which that's always been the opposite. And here's an interesting one because I don't know how we should feel about this because we don't have any information. Maybe they agreed to the worst thing. Maybe they didn't. Let's hope that they didn't.
ISP settles with record labels that demanded mass termination of internet users. This was Frontier, but Frontier is in bankruptcy. Frontier did not cut off enough customers, even though they did cut off some customers. Sony wanted them to cut off more. We don't know what the terms of the settlement was. It may or may not be monetary. If it is monetary, it's probably not much because Frontier is in bankruptcy and they just want the bankruptcy to be over. So this is probably just a pledge from Frontier to Sony it's like, yes, we'll just turn off whoever you say, fine, whatever. But we don't know.
I'm sure there was a monetary.
Probably not a lot, though, because Frontier in bankruptcy. Yeah. Like, they can't get a lot of blood from that turnip.
Probably some non-disclosures. Don't ever tell the people what we ask you to do in the first place. We don't want them to know that. And if you are an entry-level a software engineer, something like that, mechanical engineer, yeah, you're probably doomed. You're in trouble. But if you have all that organizational knowledge...
If you're the IT wizard who knows where the bodies are buried.
Yeah, especially for, fabrication and stuff, you are high demand.
Nvidia accused of poaching TSMC engineers in Taiwan, up to $180,000 U.S. salaries offered for talent, which is really good for Taiwan. And they also, you got to have a master's degree and some experience, but they also said fresh grads can earn $50,000 to $83,000 in Taiwan, U.S., which is also pretty good.
But also keep in mind that in Taiwan, there is a crazy bonus culture.
Oh, yeah.
So your base salary could be way higher.
Yeah, I talked about how you get Nvidia stock, and then that's always just, over the moon.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably take that. I think that's going to do well in the future. But not this one.
Tesla attempts to backtrack with new incentives and discounts as sales plummeted. Quote, truly pulling all the demand levers.
We've done everything except get rid of the guy who gives us all the bad publicity. Why isn't anything working?
And this article points out, it's like, hey, Tesla right now is not really like all the tariffs and everything. Like, they don't really have that because they meet all the requirements, unlike other auto manufacturers.
I don't know if the stock went back up, but during the spat, they lost something like 14% in one day.
It was their 6th or 7th worst day at the time that I looked at it.
And percentage-wise.
Percentage, yeah.
But money-wise, I think it might have been the worst. So estimated based on his holdings, Elon Musk could have lost like $20 billion that day. Can you imagine losing $20 billion?
in one day.
No, because I can't imagine having $20 billion. But
I can kind of understand if you're, maybe on some substances and you find out that you lose $20 billion, just getting unhinged on Twitter, like he was doing. I can see how that would fuel that.
I always like the calculations too, where they're like, if you save $20,000 a day from the time that Jesus was born till today, you would only have like $1 billion, or not even.
Yeah, it's an extreme number for sure. It's hard for the human mind to grasp a billion of anything.
Or $20,000 a day for the last 2,000 plus years. It's still not a lot.
And one thing that we're seeing in the hardware world, like if you look at Nvidia, for example, it's that consumer grade stuff. We don't care anymore. We have an infinite customer in the data center, and that is who we will serve.
Seagate confirms 40 terabyte hard drives have already been shipped, but don't expect them to go on sale anytime soon. I saw some of these, and they're for sale in the enterprise. These are heat assisted magnetic recording. I don't know if they're CMR or not. That's one of the, as these data densities increase, it requires more smarts in the software to leverage that kind of capacity in the drive properly. And that's the thing that we're missing in the consumer space.
But some people are not buying into the data center hype, interestingly, because most people are just buying up everything that they can, including nuclear power plants. We have one voice who's saying, don't do that.
Data center boom may end up being irrational, an investor warns. Like, remember the crypto bubble? Like, this bubble is also going to pop. He might not be wrong if we figure out, some incredible 10x for the AI machinery. It's like, we can be more efficient if we solve this with this kind of software, and then all of a sudden our existing capacity is plenty.
If you believe that AI can do what some people are saying it can do, then you should expect that kind of jump forward.
Yeah,
because it will be doing it. It will be sparking its own revolution.
And DeepSeek has already proved that there are some insane efficiency gains to be had. Because when DeepSeek first dropped, there was a lot of screaming from Mark Zuckerberg, because Meta is very power and space constrained. Why didn't Meta's team come up with something as good as what the DeepSeek team did in terms of efficiency?
OpenAI seemed a little freaked out by them as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone was kind of like, ooh.
Yeah, for sure. And Microsoft is going to police the hardware makers in terms of your ports.
Microsoft promises that it is ending USB-C port confusion with updated Windows 11 certified program, which is awesome. Basically, it's like, if you've got a USB-C port, it has to do all these things. Otherwise, you're not going to get your Windows 11 sticker. So it's power, display, charging. It has to do all that. Or power, data, display, charging.
And I think it has to charge at a certain minimum, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's bad news for the Chinese resellers, as if they would ever get anything in this country ever again. Now, this one we talked about, I don't think we talked about this exact one before. We talked about maybe the first iteration of this, and the question was, what can you actually do with it? Is this going to be value commercially? They say yes, and you can get one.
Human brain cells on a chip for sale. World first biocomputing platform hits the market. So this is biomimetic, not gel, but biomimetic material. There's neurons on a thing here. The most alarming thing is it says, the neurons will live for up to 6 months. And it's like, that doesn't seem like a long time.
Then you have to buy a new one and think how good that is for our business model.
But it does have to feed them like a nutrient paste.
And clean them.
Yeah, which is hilarious. So they're saying that probably the early use cases for this are stuff like drug testing for brain drugs. Like you literally have a little tiny brain that you can just plug into and observe and, do different things to.
Why do I feel pain?
That is
Ask it questions.
That is getting weird, and we get to that point, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure there were lessons about not doing this, even in the Fallout video game series.
There's a weird thing where we're getting, language models that seem kind of like humans, and then we have brains that we put in jars. At some point, that's going to intersect. What's that going to look like? And Google has settled. They've given up, and they're saying that maybe they will be infinitesimally less evil.
Google settles shareholder lawsuit and will spend $500 million on being less evil.
So they're going to have to set up a board, a less evil board, and staff that and give them money to explore ways that they can be less evil.
My takeaway from the lawsuit was that because you had started out as a company to not do evil, and then you changed things that hurt your market position, which is slightly different and adjacent to not actually being evil. It was like a confidence thing. It's like, oh, are you? It's like, no. From the beginning, we were going to sin boldly, and it's like,
Well, in our insane legal system, that's probably the only avenue they had was the fiduciary duty, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's okay to be evil. Look, all these other companies are evil. Yeah, but you said you weren't, and so that hurt shareholder value.
That was exactly my takeaway from the lawsuit, which is horrifying that if that's what it was.
Yeah, I think you interpreted that correctly. But Google did not correctly interpret emergency signals from some of their data sources in Germany.
Google Maps falsely told drivers in Germany on a holiday that roads across the country were closed. Like all of them. So
Look at that.
don't bother going outside.
You literally can't go anywhere.
But it was just a glitch.
Like, if you were on the road, would you just be like, oh, okay.
But what a lovely day for the people who didn't bother with the online maps, just knew where they were going. They'd be like, wow, there's nobody on the road.
There's nobody, especially people who aren't familiar with an area, driving slow, trying to find their turn.
And but it's just shocking how far VMware will go every week.
VMware drops the lowest tier of its partner program, except in Europe, where it would attract legal attention. So it's like they sent a letter, basically, and it's like, hey, you're not a partner anymore. Thanks for all the business. But if your customers don't want the cloud products, we don't want them as customers.
And they point out their excuse for this is actually more damning, in my opinion, than actually do it. Their excuse was, well, the registered user, which is the lowest tier, because of all the changes that we've made, it's functionally useless. So yeah, you can't have it. You have to go to the cloud. So we're just going to cut you off. You're not a good partner.
It's only a matter of time before they start using their patent war chest to sue all the open source stuff. I think it's inevitable.
Well, the Digital Markets Act is in full swing, and they are chipping away at the big tech companies and their horrible, horrible things that they do to us.
Microsoft will finally stop bugging Windows users about using and upgrading to Edge, but only in Europe. Like, hey, I know you're using Chrome. Can I just bring over all the cookies and bookmarks that you got in Chrome over to Edge? No. Oh, look at that. All the bookmarks and cookies just magically appeared.
And somebody really did their homework here, because they called out a bunch of little dark patterns that they did. For example, like if you install Edge, it's already in the pinned on the taskbar, right? That's an advantage. So now if you install any of the other major browsers, it automatically gets pinned to the taskbar. So the users who are just on cruise control don't install something, not realize that that's the internet now and not Edge, and just keep clicking on Edge, which is exactly what Microsoft,
they're banking on. Yeah.
Good job, EU bureaucrats, on that one. And imagine that you are an open source developer and you wake up one day and you've got a bunch of notifications on Twitter. And you're like, oh, I wonder what's going on. And you're going to have mixed emotions about this one, aren't you?
Ukraine's massive drone attack was powered by open source software, ArgyPilot. And the ArgyPilot developers I had no idea. That's interesting. So the attack was successful. It was probably good for Ukraine morale. So they've posted a lot of videos and things like that on the internet. And by all accounts, it has done billions of dollars of damage. And open source was was powering that.
This guy, Jason Shore, his tweet is like, oh, I made that.
I don't know how to feel about that.
The asymmetry here is also really important because, things you can 3D print.
It's over.
Versus high technology. It's like,
Even aircraft carriers.
Yeah.
It's invalidated them. We're now in a tiny, and they're going to get smaller and smaller. That's the crazy part.
You know what's alarming, though, is you watch some of the light shows in China where they use drones that light up, and it's like, oh, they're doing that recreationally. Oh.
They're training.
Oh, that's alarming.
They're practicing.
Is there an engagement challenge? Is there an American company that's doing that? Can we even, we have regulations about not having those kinds of things locally, right? Like you literally can't physically have an American company that can just pop down to whatever the American equivalent of Shenzhen is and be like, oh, we need to do some fancy new motors with magnets. You know what motors like? Motors really like magnets. Where do we get our magnets? Oh, right. That seems like a problem.
I think eventually we're going to all be living underground because that's the only safe place, right?
From this, like the cicadas that have been attacking
So
us.
what you're saying is invest in excavation equipment.
But and also we'll be surviving off the waste heat from the data centers that are underground with us.
Oh no, Elon's going to pivot to the boring company.
And, we've made some amazing progress in the last 13 years. The AI revolution has kicked off and things have changed dramatically. But there is one place where things have stayed the same. Essentially, it's never going to happen, folks.
$800 million, 13 years, and still no release date. At the state of Star Citizen in 2025. And yet, people are playing and enjoying Star Citizen. And there's really not a lot of complaints from the people that actually have given them money.
That's the sunk cost fallacy. They're not willing to admit their mistake.
But I mean, if you can play the game, it's better than nothing, I guess.
But it's nothing like what they promised you. Nothing
true.
like it.
They were supposed to release the single player thing. What's the status on the single player thing?
I don't think it's out. They spent a lot of money on celebrities for it.
Although, yeah, that's true.
Phasmophobia apparently is getting a movie made.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like,
What studio?
we need more.
Is it a major studio?
I don't think so. But I was like, can't we just get some more maps first? Like, you guys are making a movie. I'd love to just play some other maps.
Well, that is you've hit upon the trend of games that you might once love degrading in quality as they try more and more to mine them for cash. And well, there's nobody better at that than Activision.
Activision has quietly forced ads into Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Warzone loadouts, and players absolutely hate it. At this point, it really feels like opening up a mobile game.
They really hate it, but they're going to keep playing it.
So you can choose this rifle, or you can get the Plex Performance Pack, which is, you pay for that. This little guy up here, advertisement. This here, they put the convenient red square around this one. Don't have to look for it.
Because it looks too much like the other stuff. It's like, where's the ad? Oh,
It is
I've
sneaky, right?
misclicked.
Yeah.
What a dark pattern.
And if you are looking to study in the United States, it is probably going to be a bad time.
Trump attacks Harvard with social media screening for all visas. The pilot program will soon be expanded across the country. Would you like to come here and study? You must submit. And it's like,
Great. The brain drain just going to keep going.
Now, I expect that someday this will be all of us, right? Like, just I'll be driving through I'll be in my self-driving car, and I'll go through a traffic checkpoint, and they're going to check my social media. And I'm always
try to get on a plane.
Yeah, I'm always wondering, like, I don't have it. So what happens when I tell you that it doesn't exist? They actually explored that in this article, and they've already said, yeah, if you say you don't have it, or if it's set to private, you go right into the interrogation.
Yeah.
You cannot get away with that.
how long before that's required for buying groceries? It's like, oh, I'm sorry, we can't let you check out with cash.
You'll have to have an account, I bet, eventually.
You're going to have to make a positive post about.
Yeah, some people have been posting negatively about Kroger. And
Doritos do it right.
And Meta, we haven't been hearing a lot from them as much recently, and maybe because social media, their version of it at least, is falling off a little bit. But don't worry, they have a backup plan.
Meta's defense tech push signals cultural shift, according to the CTO. It's like, hey, we can use our vast array of knowledge for defense technology. It's like,
Which is really not what they got in the business of doing now. I've been wondering, how are they going to apply that? What can Facebook do for the military? Well, we know.
In a victory for Palmer Luckey, Meta and Anduril are going to work on mixed reality headsets for the military.
Unserious.
With real-time data. It's like overlay the thing. And it's like, oh.
So these are the ones that Microsoft famously fumbled horribly and made the soldiers throw up. And so these guys are going to take over that project. He says that his mission has been long been to turn warfighters into technomancers.
He kind of looks like a technomancer in that photo.
I think he looks like a loser.
One thing.
I mean, not to cast aspersions here as a certified loser, but takes one to know one.
One thing James Cameron didn't get right in the Terminator movies is that the first Terminators will all be linked up by that thin fiber optic cable.
And Meta is also, like every other tech company, trying to get unlimited power.
Meta's going to revive an old nuclear power plant. It's in Illinois. They inked a deal to give them money for 20 years because they've been struggling for 20 years.
They were going to turn it off in 2017, but they've been beating that dead horse since then. And so Meta was just like, we're going to refurbish everything. Here's a ton of money. And they're like, yeah, they're actually going to add capacity.
This is great. Well, before Bitcoin let's be clear that the electricity usage on the scale of the U.S. was down dramatically, not just thanks to more efficient appliances, but because a lot of industries that needed a lot of electricity, like steel mills, had left, and so manufacturing and everything else like that. So we didn't really need a lot of electrical capacity. And then cryptocurrency happened, and then now AI is happening, and so the demand for electricity is way up, way up.
And the demand for actual human-generated content, way up, because there's not much of it, and some people might be taking some shortcuts to get it.
Reddit sues AI startup Anthropic for breach of contract and unfair competition because of the way that Anthropic is using access to user-generated data. They're using it in such a way that they can just, once the AI has sufficiently subsumed the content, then Anthropic no longer needs Reddit and the contract can end.
You might be thinking, what about the other AI companies? Well, OpenAI in particular made sure that they were on the inside of Reddit, so they get special treatment because Altman's on the board. And, the people in charge probably aren't really that aware of any of this because they have no understanding of their constituency and they really don't care, but they do care that you might be voting a way they don't like. And so they're going to spend your money to try and get you back.
Democrats commissioned a $20 million study to figure out how to communicate with bros on YouTube. This is sad. Just recognize that the citizenry is suffering and offer reasonable ways to end the suffering.
Recognize that most people, even though they don't act like it, know that you're full of something that's not good. Excrement. And then stop being that. But then that would be the end of your career.
Well, the end of your profitability. You might still have, the rest of your term to do some good, but...
And sometimes we get comments from people. It's like, oh, you should do a video about X. And we think about X. We get this a lot. And we think, I don't know if we can get away with that. And maybe we were being paranoid. Oh, no, we weren't.
Poor Jeff Geerling. Self-hosting your own media is considered harmful. So this was a year-old video that was struck by our overlords because it showed how to install Jellyfin. And so he's uploaded that to the Internet Archive. It's like, oh, it's dangerous or harmful content. It literally isn't. This is literally Orwellian insanity. Sorry, Jeff. This is just absolute insanity. And this is the kind of, this is happening. This microcosm of the site that we're on is happening in the wider dialogue. And so this is why you have to work so hard to be an informed citizen in everything, not just... random, I'm going to build a media server so that I can enjoy my DVD copies of Monk.
If you're ever curious about how YouTube works, most of you probably understand to some extent. That's a good article to read because it really is just jumping through hoops all the time to try and keep YouTube from messing you up.
And he didn't violate any of the terms.
No.
I know that they said he did, but in reality,
he really didn't. Not only didn't he was very good about, this is a reasonable thing. I have this reasonable need. There's a reasonable way to solve that with technology. And it's like, oh, no, that makes you less dependent on corporate overlords. We have to stamp that out.
You won't pay for YouTube Premium.
And unfortunately, the youth are, maybe they're aware of it, maybe they're not, but they seem to be very invested in actually pleasing that algorithm and getting to be influencer status, which is terrifying for our future. But it can also be terrifying for you as an individual if you succeed.
Teen TikTok star shot dead after repeated rejections of man, police say. This is in Pakistan. She was 17 years old, the dude was 22, and it ended very badly.
So, yeah, he just would not give up. He was sleeping outside her house in a car regularly. And she kept turning him down, and eventually it was too much for him.
Horrifying.
So he blasted her.
I'm sure that was reported multiple times, and they were like, well, we can't do anything. It's not.
Well, also, what do you think the age of consent is in Pakistan? 17, 22? Would that
is a bit of a weird gap. Just because
there's European countries where that would be okay, right? other European countries?
Maybe.
I'm pretty sure.
I think for me, at least in my life experience, someone who's in their 20s dating someone who's, 16, 17, usually there's a maturity gap and it's not on the...
Well, I mean, this was stalking, not dating.
Well, right. But
So even if you're
Right.
18, I guess, it really doesn't matter.
but it's usually, there's something wrong with the older party there.
There was definitely something wrong.
Yes.
Anyway, that's it for this episode.
We've got
kind of a
some-
somber note.
We got some Friday nonsense to wash your palate out. It's going to be great.
Yeah. But first we have to get through AI. So get ready for that. Bye.